one of the most successful human species that ever lived. For 250,000 years, they dominated the continent of Europe. A harsh and dangerous landscape. Then, 35,000 years ago, another species challenged the Neanderthals. In this evolutionary contest, there will be only one winner. Nothing in this young Neanderthal's life could have prepared him for this encounter. The stranger doesn't just look different. He thinks and acts in ways which are quite alien to a Neanderthal. He is a new species of humanity. A Homo sapien, known in Europe as a Cro-Magnon. Seeing is one thing, comprehending is another.
Alt 4. 4. 4. Alt. Go. Go. Alt 4. 1. Satu.
We can't know exactly how Neanderthals reacted to their first sight of Cro-Magnons.
Ito. Down. Ito. Do. Ito. Down. Ito. Here.
But coming from such a sheltered world, it may be that they simply did not understand the significance of what they saw. For now, what preoccupies the clan is the onset of winter. They are one of the smaller clans living in this part of France. An old man and a young boy, 3 adult men and 3 women make up the family group. All of them will need to play their part if they're to survive the next few months. This hazel branch will make an excellent spear. But the young female will soon be taking a break from hunting. She's almost 8 months pregnant. The Neanderthal toolkit consisted of around 6 types of tool, all geared to more specific tasks than those of earlier humans. Hand axes, shaped to fit snugly in the palm of a hand, acted as a multi-purpose tool used to crush bones and cut wood. Side scrapers were used to prepare and soften animal skins. Triangular points were used as knives or could be hafted to make tips for spears. The Levallois blade was their greatest technological achievement. Some had cutting edges just 1 molecule thick, 5 times sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. Within the clan, tool-making skills and knowledge are passed down from one generation to the next. There are subtle differences between the tools used by this clan and Neanderthals elsewhere in Europe. Proof that clans rarely interacted. The dominant female strengthens her spear in the flame. It's an effective weapon, but not a new one. It's been around for 500,000 years, even longer than the Neanderthals themselves. The isolated existence of clans had a direct effect on their development. Limited interaction meant there was little chance to exchange new ideas and techniques. The result was that Neanderthal tools changed little in 250,000 years. The dominant male uses tree resin to fix the point to the shaft of his spear and sinew to bind it. It's a sophisticated weapon capable of lacerating the thickest hide, but it's too heavy to throw very far and exposes him to the dangers of close quarter hunting. Were Neanderthals capable of innovation? Did they have the cognitive skills to develop new ways of doing things? Buried in the archaeological record is tantalizing evidence that they did. 35,000 years ago, a remarkable transformation took place. Neanderthal tool-making techniques began to change. As well as stone, they started to use antler, bone, and even teeth. For the first time, they began to make not just tools, but decorative items like jewelry. Some scientists believe that this is evidence of a revolution in their thinking. But it may be too convenient that this great leap forward coincided with the arrival of the Cro-Magnons. The Neanderthals may simply have been copying Cro-Magnon techniques, without ever grasping what these signs and symbols really meant. The Cro-Magnons possessed a weapon more powerful than anything the Neanderthals had devised. A brain which, while no bigger than a Neanderthal's brain, was capable of new ways of thinking. Body paint and jewelry are just the outward manifestations of something far more profound. Winter has arrived. Red deer have migrated south in search of warmer weather. The balance between the food supply and the needs of the clan is delicate at the best of times. The arrival of the Cro-Magnons now threatens to tip the scales. Food has become even more scarce.
Timek, zet op hou! En timmer!
Killing a mammoth is a dangerous undertaking. For these women, one of them heavily pregnant, the risk is too great. Instead, they turn to scavenging. Scavenging meat is not ideal. An animal that's been dead for some time can harbor dangerous bacteria. Fortunately, this animal has not been dead for long. The freezing water has helped to preserve the meat. The women will use fire to thaw it out. Soon other scavengers will be on the scene. The women must take what they can, and quickly. As day turns to night, temperatures plummet to minus 19 degrees centigrade. The men sleep within the confines of their cave, warmed by the heat from 2 fires. But for the clan's women, there will be no rest tonight. Outside, the young female has gone into labor. This is a dangerous time for her. Neanderthal babies were bigger than babies are today. Fortunately, Neanderthal women had childbearing hips. The size and structure of their pelvis even makes it possible that they had a larger birth canal than women today. Nevertheless, the pain is still intense.
Rika! 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 Rika!
baby has been born safely. But its fight for life is not yet over. The baby has arrived in the depths of winter. It's a bad sign for the clan. The new mother will breastfeed her child for the next 5 years. Breastfeeding is nutritionally expensive. She'll need around an extra 1,000 calories a day to produce enough milk for her baby. During this time, she will be less able to hunt. The group will have to provide for her. As the weather grows colder and food scarcer, it's a burden they can ill afford to bear. Nearly half of Neanderthal children died before reaching adolescence. Fragments of skeletons and skulls, many with their adult teeth still not descended from their gums, make up much of the fossil record. Defects in their dental enamel suggest that starvation was one of the greatest killers. But it's the remains of babies that provide the most poignant evidence of how harsh life was. Tiny skeletons have been found in shallow pits, suggesting that their untimely deaths were mourned. However, at a site in Israel in 1983, the skeletons of 2 babies were discovered among animal carcasses and waste, implying that they were not valued and may not have died of natural causes. Infanticide may seem brutal, but in some hunter-gatherer groups, it has been an established method of birth control for hundreds of years. Only by being this ruthless are the clan able to survive at all. Now the balance between life and death is becoming even more fragile. For the first time, the Neanderthals have competition. The Cro-Magnons have different strategies for survival. Socially adaptive and competitive, they have colonized much of the continent. Small and self-sufficient, the clan are unlikely to seek confrontation with the Cro-Magnons. Evidence suggests that in some parts of Europe, the two species did coexist, apparently peacefully, for many generations. However, in this part of France, the shift from Neanderthal to Cro-Magnon settlements was much more dramatic. One of the last parts of Europe to be colonized, these fertile valleys were worth fighting for. The spear has punctured the dominant male's lung. He's lost a lot of blood, and his life hangs in the balance. The clan rally around him. Their whole future is at stake. To reveal the darker side of Neanderthal life, scientists sometimes end up playing detective. Even a single bone can yield a treasure trove of secrets. In 1953, at the Shanidar cave in Iraq, researchers uncovered a Neanderthal rib. It didn't seem much at first, but a closer examination revealed a remarkable story. A tiny groove on the surface of the bone proved to be a cut. A weapon had penetrated between the 8th and 9th rib, slicing the bone and puncturing the lung, implying that the victim had been stabbed. Though badly wounded, he did not die immediately. The build-up of bone reveals that the wound had begun to heal, suggesting that he was cared for by the rest of the group. The members of the clan know a great deal about the healing properties of plants. Sphagnum moss is used to disinfect the wound. Comfrey leaves promote the growth of bone. Both grow close to their cave. But with an injury this serious, there's only so much they can do. Three weeks have passed. The dominant male is dead. He cannot know for certain whether his clan experience a sense of loss or grief. Or whether they have any sense of an afterlife. But their treatment of their dead relative reinforces their humanity. Partial skeleton lies in a shallow pit in the floor. His right arm folded over his chest, his left hand on his stomach. A classic burial position. This body, found in a cave in Israel in 1983, has been the subject of much debate. Scattered around him were animal bones and teeth. Some scientists claim this is evidence of ritual. In another grave in Iraq, Traces of pollen suggest that flowers might have been placed in the grave. But these claims are controversial. These grave goods may have been debris that littered the cave floor anyway. Neanderthal burials may simply have been a practical way of disposing of the dead. Or was it something more humane? Inside the cave, the body would have remained close to the clan and safe from scavenging animals. With their leader dead, the dominant role now falls to his younger brother. He faces a tough choice. To remain in the cave and risk further confrontation with the Cro-Magnons, or to leave behind the center of the only world they've ever known. The Cro-Magnons take over the deserted cave. They'll use it as a temporary settlement until the rest of their group arrives. The fossil record shows that Cro-Magnons took over Neanderthal sites and made them their own. Now modern man has arrived. For the Neanderthals, there is no way back. The clan have been driven west towards the coast, out of the path of the encroaching Cro-Magnons and towards the very edge of Europe. This is uncharted territory for them. And the further they travel, the more vulnerable they become. For the young female, the group's newest recruit, this is a journey too far. Physically, the Cro-Magnons are less well adapted for life in this cold climate. But they've developed tools that allow them to live anywhere they choose. harpoons to kill fish when supplies of red meat dwindle, needles made of bone to tailor clothes.
Even gang guy. Mudon apa? Mudon.
But their most powerful tool is language.
Okay. Cool.
Unlike the Neanderthals, the language of the Cro-Magnons is rich and more complex. It's the trigger for art and culture. It allows individuals to form much larger social groups and to trade goods and form alliances in times of need. These new ways of living had devastating consequences for the Neanderthals. At their peak, around 50,000 years ago, an estimated 100,000 Neanderthals lived within this border. But the spread of modern man from Africa and the Middle East was relentless. In groups of up to 100 individuals, the Cro-Magnons colonized Europe's prime locations, monopolizing resources. The Neanderthals were forced out of their valleys onto the inhospitable mountain plateaus of Croatia and the Crimea, and west onto the rocky coastlines of Portugal, Spain, and France. By 35,000 years ago, the numbers had dwindled to a few thousand. Here on the high ground, there is little vegetation to support animal life, little water, and no natural protection from the weather. With wind chill, temperatures can be 30 degrees colder than in the river valleys below. With their short, sturdy bodies, Neanderthals are physically more able to survive here than Cro-Magnons. But nothing in their evolutionary past has prepared them for this impoverished existence. They need to eat, but cut off from the territorial hunting grounds, they find it harder to hunt prey. They need to maintain their population, but cut off from other Neanderthal clans, they find it harder to breed. The ties that have bound them together are beginning to come apart. Strong, close-knit, isolated, self-sufficient. These are the qualities that sustained the Neanderthals through repeated ice ages. But in the face of competition, these strengths have become weaknesses. And they are helping to seal their fate. When the end finally came, it wasn't genocide or even a natural disaster. It was something much less dramatic. Neanderthals were simply outcompeted by a species which came up with better strategies for survival. It wasn't even inevitable. Had Neanderthal birth rates been only 2% higher, or their mortality rates 2% lower, they might not have become extinct at all.
Çekin gel. Ngoltan. Come on, Ustan.
There may, however, be one final twist to this evolutionary tale. Physically and culturally, the Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons were worlds apart. Two separate species. But both human and motivated by the same needs and desires.
Get again.
Were Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons similar enough to want to mate? And even if they did, were their genes similar enough for a child to be the result? We'll probably never know. One tantalizing piece of scientific evidence keeps us guessing. In 1998, in Portugal's Lepido Valley, archaeologists unearthed the remains of a 4-year-old child. Its body had been stained with red ochre and buried in a shallow pit. Deer teeth and a pierced shell were found close to the child's body. Small front teeth and the pointed chin seemed to confirm that this was a Cro-Magnon child. But the rest of the skeleton tells a different story. The limbs were short and strong, like those of a Neanderthal. Yet the Lepido child died about 3,000 years after Neanderthals are believed to have become extinct. Could this child be a hybrid, half Cro-Magnon and half Neanderthal? Scientists are still undecided. For now, the possibility remains that Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons were similar enough to reproduce. But even so, it appears that this didn't alter the Neanderthals' fate. So far, DNA testing has failed to find any trace of Neanderthal genes in existing modern humans. Around 30,000 years ago, in the remote outposts of southern Spain and Croatia, the last Neanderthals died, leaving only one human species, Homo sapiens, to inherit the Earth. We've outlived the Neanderthals by less than 30,000 years. They survived 250,000 years, enduring the harshest climate the world has ever known. And yet, when the time came, like so many species before them, the Neanderthals too became extinct. Our staying power has yet to be tested.
The Channel 4 book, Neanderthal by Douglas Palmer, is now available from bookshops, priced £20. You can order your copy from the Channel 4 shop with free delivery on 0870 1234 344. And there's more on Neanderthal Man on channel4.com/next step. Next tonight, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Finn's Stag Weekend goes with a bang. In Hollyoaks, the boys do Barca.